So this is the video number 63. I didn't record anything during the working week because I was busy with creating the translations for other poems from Russian and Belarusian language. And the first thing that I changed was my correction of the poem, the translation of the Russian song that I made earlier, but I had some grammar mistakes in the text, and when I decided to improve this, to correct these mistakes, I found out that I missed, for some reason, several verses, the sets of 4 lines from the original song. So I translated these verses as well, and of course I corrected the lines that needed to be corrected. In the end, I got like 4 new verses. It's like the translation of the whole new poem. Anyway, I'm going to read aloud all these texts that I translated during the last week, and I have a real problem with the with the texts where the difficult words or the difficult rhymes I used, because I can't read aloud them quite sufficiently. And well, it's not like Wait for Me, I'll Come to You, where the text is quite simple, the words is very popular, common, and there was nothing specific about it. That's why this is so cool. But with many poems that I create, especially when they're from classical Russian poets, it's really difficult to pronounce this stuff the way I wanted to pronounce it, the way it sounds in my head when I create this. Anyway, let's go with this first rhyme. I think this long translation of the song will be quite simple, because the song is quite simple itself. Let's go. My little hero is asleep. He sees the colored dream. He didn't finish his milk tea, which is awaiting him. He always dreams of what he loves, the endless magic land, the woods, the mountains, the stars, the grass, the ice, the sand. His fairy will approach the room, not leaving any trails. Then she will cast the portal to the world of fairy tales. You'll meet young Arthur standing near the sword stuck in the stone, and Captain Jack will let you steer the black pearl through the storm. Together you'll dig out the road inside the pirate's cave. Then you'll destroy the cage that holds the princess to be saved. First she'll present you with the dance, which starts the royal ball, and then you'll get the lucky chance to kiss her at the hall. Soon all the guests will run outside to watch the fireworks. The laughs and yells will fill the night up to the pine tree tops. You and your princess will depart to walk around the lake, where you'll exchange each other's hearts at the first touch of day. With no exceptions, dreams come true, and many years ago I was exactly just like you, my fast asleep hero. I always dreamed to reach the stars and fly from east to west. I loved my dad and my grandpa, my mother was the best. And I decided to myself what I would find out next. If smoking really felt so well, and when I could have sex. But I grew up enough at last, and at that very time, my lovely princess turned to dust, and my good fairy died. My little hero is asleep, he sees the colored dream, and soon he'll board the 10 years ship. which is awaiting him. His dreams are yellow, blue, and red, like flowers in the bed, and by the window some stray cat performs the night concert. Actually a concert, but for the sake of the rhyme, I put this word here. It's like in the end of Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, he created some artificial stress on the ed ending when the correct stress goes somewhere in the beginning of the word. So that's alright, for the sake of the poetry. The second poem is the translation of Belarusian poem Зорка Venera, written by Maxim Bogdanovich. Venus, the star, shines above the horizon, making the bright thoughts arrive. Do you remember when we meet each other? Venus, do you remember? Once more. Venus, the star, shines above the horizon, making the bright thoughts arrive. Do you remember when we met each other? Venus, the star, shone above. That's when I started to look for a Venus in the night sky where the stars shone above. That's when I felt the attraction between us. That's when I started to love. But it is time to depart permanently. Maybe we're doomed to be always apart. I love you so much, I kiss you so gently, but it is time to depart. In that unknown distant place, I will dream us, holding each other in a soft embrace. Every night I'll fix my eyes on a Venus, in that unknown distant place. From time to time, look at it from the distance. That's where our glances will finally meet, so that a love will rise for an instant. From time to time, look at it. So, this experience shows that I like these poems quite much, and they are quite grammatically correctly. I can see it because the lines, the phrases are quite simple. So I need to read it aloud maybe within each week, so that I got the feeling of this poem, and at some point I could read it aloud to someone else without these mistakes. Moreover, I wrote these poems, so I am the one who can read it in the first place, the way it was intended to be read. The third poem is the translation of Слуцкие ткачихи by Maxim Bogdanovich. She has been taken for the fashion from her loved parents and her friends, and locked inside the master's mansion to weave his precious golden belts, enduring all those heavy labors, abandoning her girlish dreams. She works as hard as other slave girls, and braids the oriental schemes. Behind the walls the birds are singing, the sun is shining in the sky. Her thoughts reach out, without thinking, towards some place where spring has come. The air's transparent like a crystal, the river flows around the hill, the ears of wheat gleam in the distance, lots of cornflowers grace the field. The pine trees stand, not ever fading, forgetting Persian ornaments, and lost in thoughts, the weavers braiding the blue cornflowers of her lands. Okay. Wow. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe I didn't read it aloud. This is the translation of Yesenin, Не жалею, не плачу, so it's time to read it. No more calling, weeping, and regretting. All will vanish like the morning fog. captured by the golden autumn setting, I won't be so youthful anymore. Now my heart will never be so eager, having felt the touching of the chill, and the harem of the white birch figures won't behold my running down the hill. Rarely my adventurous free spirit reaches those breathtaking snowy heights. I have no more fires in my feelings, I have lost the glitter in my eyes. May I have grown greedy in my wishes all my life, or have I dreamt of you, as if I alone possessed the riches of the diamonds of the morning dew. We are mortal underneath the heaven, golden leaves are falling like the rain. Let it all be praised and blessed forever that emerged to blossom and to fade. I should say that the initial rhythm of the poem is quite cool. That's why the rhythm of the translation is very cool either. At least I like the initial poem for its rhythm, and I like the translation for the rhythm that was copied, that was saved in this translation. And that's the translation of Pushkin's Lukomoria, and it was really hard for me to think about the way to translate Lukomoria word into English without doing this transliteration, Lukomoria. But actually Lukomoria is the ancient word for the harbor in Russian, and this word came from two words like Luka and Moria. Moria means the sea, and Luka means the part of the land that goes somewhere forward into the sea, and Lukomoria is the part of the land that contains this harbor plus the land that kind of surrounds this harbor. So I just used the word, changed the word Lukomoria to the word harbor, and that makes my task of translating quite easier, and I'm quite satisfied with the translation in general. So let's go. The great oak tree grows in the harbor. The golden chain hangs from the tree. From dawn till dusk, the science lover, the clever cat walks on the stream. He sings the song while walking forward. He tells the story walking back. There all the marvels are mind-blowing. The mermaid sits upon the bank. There are the traces of the demons along the overgrown old tracks. The hut which has no doors and windows stands on the monstrous chicken legs. The woods and fields are full of wonders. There, at the threshold of each sunrise, the waves rush forward on the shore, and 30 knights in their bright armor come in succession from the harbor, and their commander guides them all. While passing somewhere, one young baron arrests the fierce and evil king. Above the clouds, high in the heaven, the dangerous wizard, like the raven, transports the prince via his wings. The princess suffers in her prison. The huge grey wolf makes her life easier. There Baba Yaga's motor strolls without the steering and controls. There Koshi deathless always feels it, that mighty scent of Russian spirit. And there I was. I drank the mead, I saw the oak tree at the harbor. The clever cat, the science lover, told me his stories of great deeds. So, well, it was difficult to pronounce, to say loud, because some rhymes are not very exact, and in some lines the logical stress falls upon the words that are usually used without this stress, because it's really difficult to find the correct words with the correct stresses all the time. But I think this is quite an interesting variant of the translation of Leucomoria. So unless I do any mistakes in it, I'm not going to change this translation, and I'll just move later to some other poem, because I have several other poems that I read in Russian, that I liked in Russian, and that I'm going to translate in English. And when I reach the limit of the poems that I like for my translation, I will think about maybe going into creating poetic retelling of different stories, the way I retold Mariana at some point. Well, so it took me 15 minutes to read aloud all the poems that I wanted to read. And I have, let's say, half an hour to talk about anything in English, because talking makes the practice. Talking is the practice of my English, and with this I think I can go with some news about animes. So I stopped watching animes the way I watched them a month ago. Well, I watched some episodes of Fairy Tail, which is the new season of Fairy Tail, which is called 100 Years Quest. Well, actually, I didn't like it much. It didn't give me the feeling of the original, the first season of Fairy Tail. But maybe it's better than the last season. Anyway, I forced myself to watch these episodes because, well, right now for me it's easier not to watch this stuff than to watch it. So I consider these small anime sessions is not the continuation of watching animes the way I did for the last years, for the recent years. And the interesting news was that this week the government of the USA or other forces, they closed the biggest anime channel, anime site that collected all the possible animes in Japan, in Japanese language, or translated or voiced in English. And about 170 million people watched animes on this site every month, and the servers were somewhere in Vietnam. That's why the officials could not close this pirate servers, but right now they succeeded, and they also closed about 30 titles of different anime and movie sites that collected and showed for free correspondingly movies and animes. And they consider it to be the hugest battle against the hugest win against the pirates since the shutdown of the site 123 movie, which was the hugest site that again collected and aired the movies and TV series in English without any payment, and it was considered to be pirate, pirate activity. Well, that's kind of upsetting because I had lots of animes bookmarked in my browser, and from time to time I returned to the best moments of the animes that I liked and rewatched them. But right now, if I want to do this stuff, I need to search the internet for other small sites that show the animes. Well, they still exist. They still exist, but this Anywhere had all the animes with good quality, and if I wanted something, I could find it there. But right now, if I want to watch animes, I need to look for them somewhere, maybe on the torrents. But I hope that I will leave this anime stuff, like I stopped watching different slashers and horrors when I discovered the anime for myself. So I don't know. First I watched horrors and slashers and blockbusters like Avengers, Iron Man, Batman, and other stuff. Then I switched to the animes, and right now I'm going to switch to more educational materials, like different lectures on different subjects that I had in my collection, and that I watched earlier. But now with my English speaking skill, I can use this information to retell it to myself, to create different videos. Yeah, at least this is the goal, because for a long period of time, without watching animes, without reading any popular science books, I don't have the stories to retell just from my head, without any trigger from someone else. And I didn't read science fiction stories, short science fiction stories during the last week either, because I was concentrating on this stuff, like the writing poems. Yeah. Okay. I think that's not a bad idea to reread and recall these short stories that I read earlier in on science fiction subject, because I can read it in Russian just to refresh it in my memory and then retell it later. So what I'm going to do right now, maybe I can take something like the encyclopedia book, again from my childhood, and I can go through this is actually a kind of the encyclopedia, the dictionary, where there are words, some interesting words, and there are articles for this words without pictures, without anything. But if I go through these words, I can catch something that will bring me to something from the past, and maybe from this individual words I will got the whole, I don't know, something. I will remember something. Like for example, parachute, and the first association that I have with this particular word is from the physics, this is the physics of the 8th grade, when we studied the friction, the speed, the acceleration, and there was an interesting fact about jumping with parachutes that I discovered in one of the books with the tasks, with the riddles on physics, like the parachuter jumps from the plane, and first he accelerates towards the ground, but at some point the resistance of the air, maybe the friction of the air against his costume, this friction force starts to deaccelerate. Starts to deaccelerate the jumper, and at some point he continues to fall towards the ground with the constant speed. Because the force that moves him towards attracts him towards the ground, and the force that slows him as due to the resistance of the air, these two forces become equal. And I think it was the task to calculate maybe the speed with which the parachuter was falling towards the ground, if we had some characteristics of maybe the force of the of the resistance of the air. I remember some number like 60 kilometers per hour. Maybe this is the top speed that can be reached when you jump from the plane, and when you move towards the earth without opening your parachute. Well, it's an interesting small fact that returned my thoughts back to my 8th grade. Okay, next. Well, actually, I can take lots of stuff, but I'm going to go with only some of them. For example, the periodic table of Mendeleev, and I recorded this stuff some time ago because I wanted to learn the basic elements, the names of the basic elements, and the most of the usage in the everyday life. Like, I'm not sure, I didn't reach aluminium yet, but I remember from some information in the past that aluminium was used in the wings of the airplanes, because aluminium is the lightest metal, and I think we got aluminium spoons and forks in the canteen at some moment of time of the history of Belarus. Well, maybe I should. I made this huge task for me to learn all the usages of particular elements from each article, and then move to the next element, and until I go through the most famous elements. But after 3 or 4 elements I failed, because all the words that were used as the implementations, no, as the usage of these elements needed to be not translated, because they are quite international with the Latin roots, but I needed to learn their pronunciation through the through the dictionary, and it slows the process of going with through these books very much. Maybe I should go with one particular usage of the element at a time. Then when I go through all the elements I wanted to check, I can make the other round and add more usages of the elements, and this way I can learn, let's say, about 5 usages of different elements without going into much stress trying to get all the words at once. Yeah, and of course, an interesting fact that I know about Mendeleev and his famous periodic table, that he was the 14th child in the family, and when he wanted to get the table, because he had the feeling that there is some table where the elements could be placed, and it would be the logical composition according to the different attributes of these elements. And he spent lots of time on this problem, and one day his brain just switched off. He fell into some deep sleep, and there without his conscious involvement, the brain arranged the elements, and when he and they say that he saw his periodic table in his dream, but actually it was the work of his subconscious mind that processed all the information that he got during the time that he invented into thinking about this periodic table. The same way Champollion discovered the logic behind the Egyptian language that was considered to be dead for a long time. And he was not only one, but he was the first who got the right interpretation of the language, and it was the same picture with him. He spent lots of time trying to understand the Egyptian language, but there he succeeded without sleep, and then he came, or maybe somehow he made the necessary writings, then he came to his friend, maybe to his friend's room with the shouts that he discovered, that he unlocked the mystery behind the Egyptian language, and he suddenly fell on the floor and plunged into very deep sleep, because his brain was exhausted from all this work. That's how the intuition works, where intuition is just the way the brain processes all the information that he got from the brain when the brain consciously collects all this information and thinks about it. Another interesting notion that got my attention here is perpetuum mobile and perpetuum mobile. I don't know the right pronunciation. Maybe that is quite correct, because it that is the Latin pronunciation, and it is quite universal around the world. So the last time I heard about the perpetuum mobile was from the manga, from the anime, the Chainsaw Man, when they get the trouble dealing with one particular monster. They entered the building, the team of demon hunters, and then this demon moved them to some different dimension where they stayed inside the house, but they could not leave it, because when they went upstairs at some point, they just ascended from above to their own story. And the same way, when they descended, they reached their own story from above, and if they tried to get out of the window, they got through this window to the same room that somehow was reflected in this window. Anyway, they could not kill this monster because they needed to crush his heart, and his heart was somewhere in the different dimensions. They had no way to defeat the monster. And then this Denji guy, he just jumped on the monster. The monster was a huge what? A huge mass of something that filled, let's say, one room or what? Well, actually, I think it filled the shaft of the elevator. So he jumped and he started to kill the stuff with his chainsaw head and chainsaw arms. And then this thing killed him. And he fell in the puddle of the blood from that demon. And there was a woman in his team who can kind of control the remote objects, and she used her power to start his engine by pulling the string that was attached to his heart from the distance. And then his engine started to work again, because being in this blood, he regenerated by consuming this blood. And he called this thing the perpetuum mobile, and he claimed that he had won his Nobel Prize for creating the perpetuum mobile. And all this stuff continued for 3 days without stops, and this woman all the time just pulled the string and started his engine. And on the third day, the devil said that he could not keep the suffering anymore, and he said that he will give the heart to this chainsaw man to kill him, because he could not endure this pain any longer. So they killed this monster, and they left the building after all. That's an interesting, very interesting story that was created in the settings of this particular anime. Okay, I have this Persian. They say that this is the name of ancient Iran, not Iraq, but Iran. Okay, Persia. So the last time I think about Persia was yesterday, when I created a translation of the weavers from Slutsk, the weavers of Slutsk. And when I kind of thought about this poem written in Belarusian without reading it from the beginning to the end, I thought that these 3 last lines about some arm that weaved the cornflower, which is the symbol of Belarus, instead of some Persian ornament. And I thought that these Belarusian weavers, this woman, were taken from, were captured, and they were taken from Slutsk. That's why they are Slutsky weavers. And they were moved to this Persia, where they weaved these patterns on the belt. And I kind of was wondering why they needed the Belarusian weavers, why they couldn't find the weavers from themselves, and why these weavers saw the Belarusian landscapes through the window, the river, the forest, all the other stuff, if they were in Persia. Because in Persia, I think that they should be surrounded by the sands, the way we saw in the Aladdin cartoons. And when I started to translate this poem, I needed to read it very attentively and understand each word, because I needed to translate them with the exact meaning. And I understood that the idea behind the poem was that these Slutsk weavers were actually the slave girls that were taken from all Belarus and put into Slutsk to create these belts for some master who possessed the mansion and all this stuff. That's why when they Yeah, and he wanted them to braid these Persian ornaments the way these belts were produced in Persia. So yeah, the idea that the story that Maxim Bogdanovich told in this poem was like this: some girls from different regions of Belarus were put into this factory, into this mansion, where they braided the belts with the Persian ornaments that were later sold by the master of this mansion. And that explained why they saw the Belarusian landscape through the window, because they were inside the Belarus, in Slutsk, but they were far from their homeland, their hometown, from the house, their parents and friends, and they worked as the slaves without leaving the territory and so on. And I recalled that I read something about this stuff, maybe in the 5th or in the 6th grade, or maybe some teacher told me this information, that Bogdanovich, who lived outside of Belarus, he lived all his life in Russia, maybe in the south of Russia, because his health was poor, and he stayed there where the climate was more suitable for him. So he imagined all this story with the Belarusian weavers who were the slave girls who worked for some master in Slutsk, because in reality there were factories and there were lots of mechanisms that produced this belt, and only the men worked on these mechanisms. So it was more like the may I say modern factory that used the technologies and the strong manpower to produce lots of Slutsk belts, than just the romantic fantasy thing that Bogdanovich imagined in his head. But anyway, the story turned out to be very cool, and his last lines are almost like the hymn of Belarus. At least these 3 lines, they are all that I knew from this poem until I translated it into English. So, forgetting Persian ornaments and lost in thoughts, the weavers braiding the blue flowers of her lands. Yeah. So, as we can see, I found the topics to speak for my 45 minutes to practice my English, and with this particular association technique, I can go through all the words and got the small ideas from the facts that I learned from the past, and then I can talk about it later. For example, the next word that I see in this encyclopedia is the gloves. I don't know what the topic is about, but this strong association with the gloves that I have is this rubber gloves that I started to use to wash the dishes with the soap, and especially to wash my clothes with the powder, because all my life my mother washed the dishes and washed the clothes without the protection of her hands. And I did the same thing until I got this eczema on my hands, and then I always use the gloves until I need to do something like washing in the shower, and this way it's more effectively just to use my current skin on the hands. Anyway, the interesting thing that I recalled when I saw this notion, the gloves, is the first episode of the Pokemon series, the original Pokemon series with Ash and Pikachu. And in this first episode, when Ash, being a 10 years old boy, went on his adventure with Pikachu to become the world champion of Pokemon tournament. His aunt, I don't know, or his mother, she gave him the things that he should use during his adventures, and she gave him these rubber gloves so that he could wash his underwear and clothes, and she said him to change his underwear every single day. And when Ash got into the possession of the only Pokemon that was left, which was Pikachu, and Pikachu was not pleased with Ash, when Ash touched him with his bare hands, Pikachu always hit him with the lightning, and the professor said that these rubber gloves will be a good means to keep Pikachu without being electrified, without being shocked all the time. And this episode was made in 1998, and I watched it for the first time in 2016 maybe, but when I really tried to watch Pokemon from the beginning and failed, and it was maybe a year ago, so this first episode really hit the nerve about me and my mother washing all the dishes and all the clothes for all these years without using the gloves, because the gloves are quite easy to destroy. They got the holes all the time, and then they should be replaced. And it's kind of difficult to find the gloves that have this level of durability. I used for a long period of time the gloves that were made in Malaysia, but they were produced or ordered in Poland, and then they were transported here. But after some events, these gloves disappeared from the shops, and now I found other gloves in different collection of the shops, the network of the shops, and they are produced in China, and they are sent here from China, like most of the goods this time, like for example the cars Geely that are made in China. Anyway, I have this strong association with me doing this stuff with the Japan people who used these gloves as the thing that was natural for a long period of time, maybe since 80s or maybe 70s or even 60s. So I have more than 50 minutes of recording, and I think that's alright for this video number 63. Maybe in the future I will be successful with recording just at least 20 minutes videos during my working days, because my current goal is to reach the 100th video and check my result at that moment. And to do this, I need to perform at least 3 or maybe 4 videos during the week to reach this 100th video point as quicker as I can. And that's all for today, and I'm going to stop this video right now.